Our new sponsor, Better, is a fast-growing daily fantasy sports app. When you sign up using promo code PLAYBOOK in all caps, you receive a free pick and a 100% deposit match up to $77. Welcome to the NBA Hangout presented by Playbook Sports. I'm your host, Brandon. With me, as always, is Dave. Dave, how are you?
I'm good. For some reason, I got really cranky today, though. I like... If given an opportunity, I would have fought a stranger today.
Ooh, that's very cranky.
Yeah, just out of nowhere. I was just like, humankind.
Yeah. The human nature of us. It happens. It happens to the best of us. I think it happens to some of these guys in these series too. I think they've been a little cranky as well, especially over there in Cleveland. But we'll get into all that. Lots to talk about. We have a draft lottery that happened, controversial, but lots of sparks happening there. Some series that are fun, some series that are ending, some series that have ended that we can get into. Injuries, all that stuff. Where to begin? How was your week? We'll go from there.
I mean, it was full of like twists and turns, right? I did not anticipate the Pacers doing it in 5. I did not anticipate the draft lottery going that way. I did not anticipate like Tatum having a major injury. I mean, the guy's been like an Iron Man his whole career, so it's been a lot. It's been a shocking week.
Very, very shocking week. I guess the most shocking of it all is the Mavs getting that number 1 pick. So I think we could start there. With the draft lottery results. So the other night we did have the draft lottery. And it as follows: let's go with the top 10 picks. So we have Dallas at 1, San Antonio at 2, Philly at 3, Charlotte at 4, Utah at 5, Washington at 6, New Orleans at 7, Brooklyn at 8, Toronto at 9, and Houston rounds out your top 10. First thoughts on how that shook out.
Dallas Mavericks fans have had the wildest year.
The most insane year
I
think a franchise can possibly go through. You trade your franchise player for a solid top 10 player, but you trade away your franchise player who thought who's going to be there forever. You just trade him. He goes on to go into the playoffs. Everyone gets injured that you traded for, and even the players that you didn't trade got injured.
Yeah,
your fans are protesting. The mayor is against you. Everyone's been against you, and then you get the number 1 pick. Look at that.
In a year where it's a great number 1
the year that everyone is tanking.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about whether it's worth it to tank anymore, because that's how this kind of shook out would kind of lead me to believe that maybe tanking ain't the end all be all for some of these builds. But yeah, Mavs scored that number 1 pick, presumably going to take Cooper Flagg. What are your first thoughts on that?
Just likely to be a really good player. Probably going to help the Mavericks right away, which is good because the Mavericks are built to compete like right now. The fact that they got the number 1 pick is kind of awesome.
From a basketball perspective, it is nice because you don't really get. I mean, Kyrie's going to be out for a decent chunk of the year with his injury, but recovering from his ACL. But outside of that, like you're going to be next to AD, Derek Lively. You got some players, Max Christie. You got some guys that you could really play with on that team.
You're still Clay on that team.
Still Clay on that team. So you got a good vet. You got some vets around you that are going to show you the right way how to be a pro. All that stuff which I think is important for development. So I think from a development standpoint for Cooper, I think this is a win. They don't even have a solid wing there to begin with. So he slides right in there. He gets to play competitive basketball. This team was in the play-in. So it's not like they're a terrible team, but so they're still looking to compete. And he could fit right in to do that. I think that's a good fit for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And at one point he was like even considering not coming out this year, like not declaring for the draft, and he ends up in just a choice little situation. So good for the fans. Nico, you don't deserve it, but good for the fans.
And Nico, you don't deserve it. But yes, the fans definitely do. They went through a lot this year. So there's been a lot of talk about that, like, where that number 2 shook out with it being San Antonio. We'll talk about that too. But I think one interesting one that I think that hasn't been talked about too much is the Philadelphia at number 3. After the year that they've also had, they've had a pretty terrible year with, they traded for Paul George. They thought that was going to be the final piece in their new big three with Tyrese Maxey and Embiid. Embiid doesn't really get to play much this year. In fact, has like knee surgery, I believe it was, again, to clean up the meniscus once again. So that's going on. So that went on. Paul George has a down year. Tyrese Maxey gets hurt throughout the year. Jerry McCain, who looked like a promising rookie, gets hurt. So it was just a really tumultuous year again for them as well. So seeing them in that spot to begin with, but seeing them get that number 2 pick, that number 3 pick, least questions is, what do you think they're going to do with that pick? Because Morey likes to go big game hunting all the time. Do you think this is the pick that they're going to keep and develop, or do you think they're going to try and build some more, knowing that MB's going to be out for majority, I think not majority, but at least a decent chunk of the year next year?
I think they either take Ace Bailey, just because they're good at guard. They don't need a VJ Edgecombe. So my thinking is they'll either take Arias Bailey or attach that pick to Paul George's contract to get off of it. I don't think they go big game hunting. I think they try to fix a mistake, if anything, with that pick.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the way that they should. Yeah, I think they're also in a situation now where they can start looking into that their youth movement that's been building over there. That Tyrese
Jared McCain will be back.
Yeah, McCain will be back. I think you let Tyrese develop. Now, the Embiid question is another question that I think has to be asked as well. He's going to be hurt, so I don't think you're going to be able to trade him or get much from him at this point. But when he does come back, presumably next year, and leading into next offseason, do you think that's a player that Philly should be looking to build around still, or should they be looking to move on from him and kind of look into this next generation of Philly?
I think a lot of it will depend on just how competitive they are. If Embiid comes back and he's like, healthy enough to like play consistently, I think that's going to alleviate a lot of concerns for any team that might consider trading for him. I don't think we're ever going to see the same MVP Embiid again. I think he'll be a very good, serviceable center for the next couple of years, assuming that like whatever happened with his knee just like works out.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like once Shaq was past his prime, right? In his prime, unbelievable. In Embiid's prime, unbelievable. But after that, it's like he's serviceable. He's good. Like he's going to do good work, but he's just not, he's not dominant anymore. And I think that's what's going to happen to Embiid. Like I think he's going to kind of slip down a level. And if you're not like late rounds of the playoff competitive, I don't think it's worth keeping him. So if you're going into next season and Embiid is somewhat like next offseason, and Embiid is somewhat healthy, and you're kind of in the middle still, I think you trade him. I think it's going to depend on results with that team.
Yeah. That'll be tough because he does have that big contract and everything like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think you're right on the money there. It's like you gotta see what this team is. If they can be competitive, if Paul George has a bounce back year, these things can happen. Then you're looking like you can be a contender in the East, which looks like it's starting to get weaker and weaker by the second. So you might be able to sneak your way into having a pretty successful playoff run if the chips fall the right way. So yeah, I think I'm with you there too. I think it's a weighted out year for them. I think they don't do anything drastic. They probably just make moves around the edges to make sure their depth is a little better, and they have the right role players surrounding that quote unquote big three that they have. And then they go on from there. See what they do with that third pick. Now that second pick with the Spurs, again presumably would be Dylan Harper would be the choice there, which will go into a stacked guard rotation there with Castle, Chris Paul's there as well, Darren Fox is there as well. So you have lots of guards over there already. So what do you think they do with this pick? Do you think this is one that they're looking to keep? Because we have heard rumblings that they've wanted to make moves to get like a lot more talent around around Giannis is the guy we're going to talk about, but around Wemby. Do you think this is going to be their chip to gain their next star, their third star in that big three that they're looking to get?
I believe it is. I don't think they're gonna go off board and take an Arias Bailey or VJ Edgecombe, which would be like the two players mocked out directly after Harper. And Edgecomb's really just he's like a combo guard anyways. So it really just like based on construction of the team, like Bailey's kind of the only guy that would make sense if you're not getting Cooper. In which case, I don't know. Like I think that's the most available number 2 pick in a long time, excluding last year's draft, because nobody was keen on last year's draft.
Yeah, no one wanted to do. No one wanted any part of last year's draft for whatever reason. No, I think it has to be like your chips. So I've seen many make the argument that this is a pick that they should probably keep just for the sake, the new CBA, team building, and all that type of stuff. My qualms with that would be you have Wemby. He just had a serious medical issue, so you don't know how long he's going to last. You don't know how long you're going to have this window for. He's on his rookie contract right now. I think this is the time you can absorb some massive contracts if need be, and use some of those assets to build a real contender around what's going to be one of the better players that we've seen in recent memory, Wembanyama. So I think anytime you get the chance to add any type of star in this situation, you kind of got to go for it. Youth is always nice, but you don't know what youth is going to turn into. So until you know what that's going to really be, I think you got to be looking for them stars. One star that has somewhat turned to be available, testing the market a little bit, making their decision, is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now I do feel like that's a player that the Spurs are going to go after. They've been kind of quiet about it recently. It sounds like they were kind of downplaying the whole thing. But I would look, they seem to be a team that has lots of assets, looking to compete, and would be a fit for a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo if you want to go there. I think him and Wemby would be a tremendous fit. Do you see the Spurs making that move? And they'll basically have to give up a ton of assets to get him, but they have a ton of assets. Do you think that's something that they'll be interested in doing?
I think it makes a lot of sense based on their roster construction to pair him with De'Aaron Fox and Wemby. Like that's such a scary downhill team. That's such a scary defensive team. It's that number 2 pick was it was probably the most interesting pick that came out of the draft lottery, in my opinion. Because now I feel like it's available. And for whatever, like, if I'm the Spurs, I go hard after Giannis, right? He's the best player available. You mentioned it. He's a no doubt Hall of Famer. He's still in his prime. He wouldn't overlap with anyone. It just makes a lot of sense. But for whatever reason, if he's not going to the Spurs, I still think that pick is like available, and I think a lot of teams would look at it. As a Raptors fan, it's the one that I dreamt on. I didn't dream on number 1. I dreamt on number 2. It just made more sense.
Better fit for the Raptors.
Better fit for the Raptors. The Raptors need that lead guard who like knows he's a lead guard, who's just gonna like take control and not let any of the weird Raptors experimenting happen where they're like, oh, should we run it through Scotty at the 4? Should we let Emmanuel quickly run it at the 1? Should we do like the beautiful game thing? No, you just if you have the right lead guard, they just kind of clean all that up. And that's what I want for the Raptors. I assume that's what you want for the Heat.
Would be nice.
It's so to me, Dylan Harper is a very enticing prospect in this draft. It's just funny because Cooper is such like he's a prospect you don't pass on. So if you get number one, you kind of
take
have
him.
to
Yeah.
take Cooper. But I think like personally, I look at Dylan Harper and I'm like, that's the way I like to build a team, is like around the one, I like the lead guard approach. I like what Detroit has done. I like the way that Golden State has been built for years. I'm disappointed that Charlotte hasn't been able to build around LaMelo Ball. Look at the Pacers and
OKC,
Halliburton.
Pacers,
OKC, yeah. Even the Lakers, like Luka is their point guard. Right?
Yeah.
So big, strong, smart guard in today's NBA. That's a great archetype to have.
Yeah.
And
I think it's super valuable. Like this, because on the defensive end is where a lot of these guards get picked on. So like even like a Brunson's been pretty good these playoffs, but he's a guy that typically would get picked on. Garland got picked on all that series. Harold got picked on. They try to pick on Tyrese, but he's gone a little. They've been able to mask him well enough. But once you're a bigger guard, it makes life so much easier on that side of the end. It's really hard to find a weak point where you can just constantly attack and attack and attack. So yeah, I think these big guards are becoming more and more valuable as the years go on.
Yeah, so I think San Antonio's phone's gonna ring a lot.
I think they'll have plenty of options for those guys in San Antonio. Speaking of Giannis, staying on the Giannis train, are there any other teams that you think would be in that hunt? I think there was like a rumor going out that he wanted to stay out east, which was interesting. I mean, there's a team out east, north of the border, that have some ties with Giannis. What would the run look like from the Raptors?
I mean,
to make a run at Giannis.
To go after Giannis, they would have to go. They would have to trade like a couple of their established players, even like one that may have yet to lace them up for the Raptors. Like it might be a Brandon Ingram led package. Are you doing like Ingram, Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter? Are you doing RJ? Are you doing Quickly? Do you have to do Scotty? Does it have to be Scotty if you're gonna go after Giannis? I mean, like if you're the Raptors, I love Scotty, but it's Giannis. like if you can get him, kind of do whatever you can. And I think every team should approach it that way. Like if I'm Houston, I'm looking at him. If I'm OKC, if for whatever reason Denver comes back and beats OKC, like guys, you got to go big. You got every asset in the world and an MVP, right? Like, figure it out. Get them both.
I think Denver is a real sneaky KD team. I think that's a team that could sneak him on that. If they're willing to finally let go of Michael Porter Jr., he had like 2 points in that game last night. If they're finally to get rid of him, I think that's a KD. In my mind, you have Jamal Murray, Kevin Durant, and Nikola Jokic as your big three. I think that is. I mean, KD's old, but he doesn't need to. You have Jokic. Like if you have Jokic, KD will be just fine. KD likes coming around these screens. He likes playing off ball anyway. He can do it, and they've lacked another person who can kind of step up in these moments. Jamal can do it at times, but he's a guard and a smaller one, so sometimes it's a little difficult to get him the ball or get him in situations that are ideal for him. But a guy like KD, he's one of the better fourth quarter players that we have in today's NBA. I think he fixes a lot of their issues, and he adds to their defense too, in a way that Michael Porter Jr. does not. If I'm Denver, I'm making that call for KD.
Interesting.
Right away. I think it's a little cheaper than the Giannis thing might be a little bit out of their price range, but I think KD's right there. Right? I think KD for a lot of these teams that are like closer. I think they should be looking at like a Minnesota. Should be looking at him. I think a Denver should be looking at him. I think even a Cleveland. I don't know how they get there, but I know if you trade Garland and you're willing to trade another one of your pieces, like DeAndre Hunter to another team, you get under that second apron, and then you're able to aggregate contracts again, and you can make a big trade for a guy like KD. I I think those type of teams are the teams that should be like in that KD conversation when he becomes. I mean, he's already available in this offseason.
No, that's interesting. I didn't think of KD to Denver. That would be really fun because it would still be Jokic's team. But maybe this is like KD's issue because he didn't like that it was always like Steph's team. So at the end of a game, I think like who's going to take this shot, right? And it's been Jokic, and he does an unbelievable job with it. But can you imagine Jokic with the option to either shoot it or pass it to somebody who may even be a more natural scorer than Nikola Jokic?
Yeah, some options are just endless. And KD's like a basketball savant. Like he appreciates the game on levels that like a lot of people just don't. A lot of NBA players I don't think either. He really just loves the game of basketball. So I think him and Jokic would just be like a fun fit. Like I know there's been a lot of smoke out there with like Miami being interested in KD. I think they will pursue him. I think that's a team. I think Miami is going to try and go for KD. They haven't really done a good job of masking their interest in that player. Just because it's the same type of thing. He's an older player, yes, but he's a type of older player that fits like what they kind of do at this stage. He just wants to play basketball. Miami just wants someone who wants to play basketball. They're not asking for too much more. And he fixes a lot of like their offensive issues. He gets to be the guy. He gets to be the guy on the court, but he won't be the vocal leader on the team. It will be Bam. Bam stepped into that role now, like assertively, especially when you hear like his exit interview. You could really feel that okay, he is taking control of this team, and he's taking the persona of it and everything like that. So I think Miami will do everything to pursue him, whether it's the right move or not. I don't know, but I'm just prepping my mind just to be hearing that out there. But I think a team like Denver and Cleveland or Minnesota are right in that realm for KD.
Thinking about Miami for a second, Bam's their best player, but I don't feel like the team was ever built around Bam. Is it time to reshape with him in mind?
I think the direction that they're going to be going into is going to be something like that. I think they're going to be really looking at, judging by like their exit interviews, like what they're going by and what Pat Riley was talking about. The only two players that Pat Riley even really touched on were Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo. So sounds like they're ready to retool everything else around those two guys, which I think is finally, yes, it's time to do that. Like I think some of the issues that come with Hero's game come with the fact that they haven't had a lead guard like a Dylan Harper, for example, around them. Around them to really make life easier for Hero, because they've had to like pigeonhole Hero into this combo guard type player, and he's overcast at that. Guard. Yeah, he's just like she's a shooting guard who can score the basketball. You don't need him, who can play make if need be, but you don't want to rely on him to be your playmaker. You want to be an option there. So yeah, I think like if they were to retool the team and they were to get a lead guard like that around them and really build it out, I'd be interesting to see. I don't know how far it will go, but I'll be definitely interested to see like how that looks. I think Bam with like a lead guard as well just opens up his game so much. Like the 2022 year when Kyle Lowry was there was one of the best years that Hero had. Was one of the best years Bam had, because he was still able to get those guys in situations that would impact the game in good ways. I remember one of the first things that was noticeable when Kyle came over was when Bam would go to post and he would kick it out. Kyle would make sure he got the ball right away again. And like he'll tell Bam, no, go back, repost, and I'll get you the ball again in a better position. And then Bam would, usually take care of work that back then. But until that point, there wasn't a guard who would do that for him. And since Kyle's left, it's been, here and there where you get that, but nothing quite like that. So I think now would be the time. Bam's in his prime. He's on the USA team last year. He has all these connections around the NBA. They almost put off the Dame one, but I think it's time for them to really focus on building this team around Bam and giving him a true co-star that complements his game properly.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I guess one question you have to answer with Bam is he a 4 or a 5?
And I think we're now comfortably in the position where he can do both decently well enough. So you can get the 5, you can get the, an interesting name that popped up with Miami was AD. having interest with Miami, which I don't know how true or not that one was, but that was a name that was thrown out there. It was AD and Giannis that were interested in Miami, and that shows the versatility of what they can do defensively with Bam. Bam played the 5 all these years, but they had Ware playing 5 for most of I'll say about half of the year and onwards. And Bam adjusted. He started to shoot more threes. By the end of the year, he became a pretty decent 3-point shooter. So he's able to space that floor if need be to play the 5 against with a lesser shooting 4, or he can play the 4 with a lesser shooting 5. Whatever needs to be the case, I think Bam can do now in this situation. I think they want to have the Bam and Ware front court if Miami doesn't have to move Ware in this offseason. I think they will if they need to, but if they don't move Ware, I think they would ideally start Bam and Ware together and just have a powerhouse in the front court defensively. And then work out the rest of the team from there, which is why I think a KD would work nicely. You have those two, KD, Tyler, and X guard, whatever guard you name a guard there. I think you have a decent team in the East this year. But we'll see what they manage to do.
It'll be interesting. It's a fascinating year for Miami, just simply because, for the last couple of years, I think they've had like a pretty obvious direction. It was always just kind of tooling around the edges, trying to make it work with Jimmy as your lead player, Bam as your second, Tyler as your third. But now, like, Ware was a really nice find in last year's draft. Works really well with that team. Obviously, Jimmy's gone. The Terry Rozier experiment didn't work. There's a lot of optionality that in Miami that hasn't been there in a while, and I don't think they're really outside. Honestly, I think even like Tyler Hero could be available. I think only Bam is the guy.
Yeah, I think Tyler could go like in a Giannis conversation. I think Tyler's on the table. 100%, he's on the table. I think I wouldn't be surprised if anybody gets traded except for Bam this offseason with the Heat, which is interesting. I think also too with the Heat, this is the first offseason where they've had a decent amount of assets that they can trade. I think in the Jimmy build, all those years that Jimmy was there, their issue was they only had like 1 or 2 picks. They've always been missing out on one pick. They can get up to 4. They can get up to 4 this year if they really need to. If they talk to Charlotte and get their protections figured out, they can get up to 4 picks that they can trade this year, which is the most that they've had in a long time. I know some fans are upset. They could have had 2 lottery picks this year if they just missed that play-in game, and that would have given them an extra pick. But Miami doesn't operate like that, and we shouldn't expect them to suddenly change their motto. So yeah, I think for Miami, it's an interesting offseason from that perspective too, that they haven't had all this ammo. They haven't been as willing as it sounds like to make moves in the offseason. So I think moves will come to Miami, and we'll just see which ones end up sticking and which ones fade into the dust.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm excited. We're halfway through the playoffs, and I'm already thinking of like the off season. Like, give me the draft. Give me the first couple days of free agency.
This is your realm. But we talked about some of the KD teams. We got to go back into the postseason now. I think that was a good amount of lottery talk, off-season talk. Got to get into that postseason. You know what? Right before we start talking about that postseason, there is one other topic I want to just touch on, and related to the draft is tanking. And a lot of these tanking teams. So you have your Charlotte, you have your Utah, you have your Washingtons, you have your New Orleans, Brooklyn Nets, all deliberately tanked. They all finished 4 or higher. None of them got into that top 4. We've seen this time and time again since the lottery odds have been flattened a bit. That you losing a lot of games isn't necessarily the path for you to build a successful team. I know some people are a little upset about, some of these small market teams never get the opportunity to draft players. This team didn't get to whatever franchise Charlotte hasn't had a first pick in however many years. But you look at teams like Indiana who don't have that option either, and they're headed to a conference finals once again. There's plenty of ways.
Year in a row. Yeah,
plenty of ways to build a team. New York didn't draft nobody that was a high ranking guy. They traded for them. There's plenty of ways. There's plenty of ways to build your team. You can't rely on the draft. The draft is just there as an option for crazy things to happen. And like Mavs getting the first pick, like Spurs getting top 3 picks in like 3 drafts in a row. The draft isn't meant as a crutch. It's meant to be there as just like another tool for you to use.
Yeah.
I think more and more we're starting to learn that lesson, but I just think tanking isn't what it used to be.
It is and it isn't. If we go back 2 years ago, tanking worked out really well for the San Antonio Spurs.
It's extremely well for the Spurs.
Um,
Spurs seem to be the exception to all these rules right now.
Yeah,
because they'll just get a lottery pick.
It's one of those weird things where, like, you know, most sports leagues are copycat leagues. So whatever happened in the year before,
Maybe I'll amend it to ethical tanking.
see, it didn't work out for the Raptors either. They did the quote unquote ethical tank, and they lost 2 draft positions.
Yeah, that is true.
So really, what happened this year was any team that started the year off with like proper intentions, and then for whatever reason it didn't work out. So such as the Philadelphia 76ers getting crushed by injuries, San Antonio losing Wemby to blood clots, even Dallas making their big trade and then everybody getting hurt. Like those 3 teams all tried until the point where it was like, look, like our personnel is gone, right? Like they're gone. Like they can't even get onto the floor. So now we're gonna tank with like a third of the season left. Whereas the teams that all set out and like started the year by tanking, like
Utah's a huge example to me.
Yeah,
Utah got fined. Like Utah got fined mid-season for sitting guys, and I don't think we've seen fines like that for a long while. Like they were really out there trying to lose games,
right? And then like, what does that do for your organization, right? Like it's not good for your organization to like purposely lose games. It does something to your players. They forget how to win, the confidence that comes with winning, right? The expectation that comes with winning, right? I would suggest that Golden State is not a super well built team at this moment, but they have this confidence that they know how to win, they expect to win, and it's brought them how far? Like they're not out of it yet. If Steph comes back,
I'll tell you right now, I'm watching this third quarter, and
they might be out of it.
They might be out of it, but they made it the second round.
Well, they made yeah, right. And like, should they have?
I mean, on paper, like not really. Like they're not that great of a build team. You just have 2 stars, 3 depending on what you call Draymond these days. But you have 2 stars, one that's ignitable at any moment, and then one that has his moments. And they're just smart players who know how to make winning plays.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like there's certainly arguments for and against tanking. I've kind of and like I'm dinosaur pilled, right? Like I'm a Raptors fan. I've kind of liked the Raptors approach of just trying to build it up and be ready, right? Like in 2018, the team was built up. It was ready. It was a superstar away from being able to do what they needed to do. Kawhi Leonard became available. Raptors somehow got him, and a year later they win a championship, right? So this is my thing with like Oklahoma. Like if they don't win, like they're like right there. They actually have a superstar, so I don't know what else they might need. They would just get another one. So like build your assets, gather some stuff up so that you have the ability to do what you need to do, wheel and deal. I think you take more control over your franchise in that approach versus the wishing on lottery odds, because it's a lottery, it's odds, right? People are going to say that this lottery was rigged, and that's really fun to say, right? It's really fun to be like, oh my goodness, like this is just so that this is part of the deal that got Luka to LA.
I saw the video. Like, if
Yeah.
anyone, like, you go look at the video of how the draft is done, and it's not rigged.
Yeah.
But then there's all these graphics of like these teams that like made these trades, and then they ended up getting a star the next draft. It's like these teams are bad. These teams are bad. They were going to get a good pick. They had an option to choose some of these players. Some of these guys weren't even first overall picks. They were first, maybe top 3, top 4 picks. But the teams were bad.
Yeah.
They were going to get a good pick regardless. That's why they were able to draft these guys.
Like, wasn't Luka 5th? He was like,
Luka was a 5th pick. Yeah, he was.
No, he was the
third pick. Traded for
the 5th.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, Jimmy was a 30th. Pascal Siakam was a 27th.
You don't know where your stars are coming from. No one knows.
Nikolai Jokic was what, 43rd?
Yeah, he's a Taco Bell commercial. He's drafted during a Taco Bell commercial.
Right? And nobody cared. Like, Denver fans probably weren't like, oh my God, they didn't show Nikolai Jokic the night he got drafted. They were like, who's this like soft looking fella?
We have Nurkic.
Yeah. Why do we need a Jokic?
Yeah.
So, like, the draft can be funny like that. And, looking at this class, I feel like there's a superstar in this draft. Like last year we were talking, I feel like there's a star player, don't know where they're going to be. But I feel like there's a superstar in this draft, but we don't know where it could be. Could be Trey Johnson. He could be Devin Booker. And he could go anywhere from like 5th to 12th.
Yeah. You never know with the draft. Like we always have surefire guys, and we don't know when they're gonna pan out or not. James Wiseman was a surefire guy at number 2, and look what happened with him. So you really just never.
Yeah.
You never know. I guess one last question. I said one last question before, but another question I have popped into my brain about the Raptors in general.
Yeah.
Now seeing how all this played out, you have OG. I'm still keeping the playoff theme, so don't worry. You have OG looking to get to the conference finals. You have Pascal in the conference finals. You have Van Vliet, who was in the playoffs, went to 7 in the first round. You see that core everywhere else. You see how the East is depleting. Would you now, if you had to go back 2 years ago, make those same moves for those players to start this rebuild, or would you have just done a soft retool? And you probably would have been a competitive team in the East if you kept all those guys together, now that I think about it.
I think the right move was to move all those guys because the Raptors were out of a competitive window at the time. Even with those guys together, like they won games, but they weren't a contender. And the best, maybe the most heartwarming part as a Raptors fan is all 3 of those guys got their flowers after leaving, right? So north of the border, we always complain that, the national media doesn't give our players any credit. They don't pay attention. They just discount everything. And part of that's true. Part of that's not true. Part of that's just like Raptors fandom being like, nobody believes in us, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, we got to do something for people to believe in us, right? Yeah. But like OG going to New York, everyone's like, man, OG, like one of the best defenders in the game. Like, I can't believe he didn't get defensive player of the year votes, or like all this kind of stuff. And, then like New York fans are seeing his weird interviews, which are great. And
they're enjoying all that.
Yeah. He finally gets the national spotlight that he deserves. Pascal goes to Indiana. He's still in a small market. But he gets there, people are like, ha, spin move. And then he starts spin moving guys, and they're like, have you guys seen this spin move? He's really good. He's like averaging 23 a game. And Fred goes to Houston, and everyone's like, what an overpay. What an overpay. He gets there, gets hurt, and then they're like, we can't play without Fred VanVleet. Like, this guy just makes the team work. And that's all he's ever done since he got into the league. He just makes whatever lineup he's with work. And it's just really nice to see that these players get their credit, when Scotty gets traded for Giannis and the Milwaukee media is just blowing up about how great versatile he is and what a fun guy, it'll be great to see. It'll be great to see.
It would be
Right?
great. It would be great. I wouldn't mind Giannis being in the Raptors jersey. I will say that. No, I think I have to agree with you. I have to agree with you on most of that. I think yes, the competitive side of me is like I think they could have stayed together. I think they could have just retooled it, and made something out of it, and maybe that core.
But
But
would
at
it
the
be
same
that much
time,
better than this team that's out there right now?
this
Like,
Raptors team,
yeah, like
um,
are
I
RJ
think
and Quickly that bad? Because essentially Pascal turned into Brandon Ingram. Is that bad? Like, I
I don't
kind of
know what
like
Brandon.
that. Like
I
I'm
don't know what
intrigued.
I don't know what Ingram looks like on the Raptors yet. I still don't. Is his
Nobody
ankle
does.
okay? I
Is it
don't
going to
know.
be bionic next year? Hopefully.
Who knows? I think that's fair though. The team might end up being better than that core. And I think the main thing that I want to say about that core in general is they wanted to all move on their own as well because I think they spent their time as a Raptor and they want to develop in different ways. Whether for Van Vliet, he wanted to be that leader for another team, ushering a new generation of players over there in Houston with a coach that matches his identity. I think that was a good fit for him. I think that was the right decision individually for him. I think for OG as well, he gets to go to this team with Thibodeau, who's a bruising coach. He's a bruising player. It's a match made in heaven, I think, there as well. He gets to play all the minutes. His body is held up. And I think that's just a great fit. You see the benefit of it. He fits that New York aesthetic. I think Pascal as well. I think he fits that Indiana culture. He fits with Tyrese nicely. They both want to get out and run. When they need someone to slow it down and get a point in isolation, they have Pascal to do that. I think Pascal wanted to be that guy. There's always butting heads there with Scotty Barnes, butting heads there with Kawhi, of if he was that guy or not that guy. I think in Indiana, there's a clear-cut pecking order of where he fits. So I think individually, I think for each one of those players, I think the right decision was made. It's just a question I had to ask to see.
Of course. Yeah.
See what you would think, because it is interesting to see how all those guys did pan out. So continuing on the playoffs, we talk about Pascal and those Indiana Pacers. They do knock out the number 1 seeded Cleveland Cavaliers in just 5 games. It just took them 5 games. What were your thoughts on that?
Injuries suck.
Injuries do suck.
Like the Cavaliers were decimated with injuries in the second round, and it was one of those things that they couldn't overcome. I'm really impressed with Boston tonight overcoming the Jason Tatum injury, but I think Boston's doomed because of it. Like, we've been talking a lot about depth versus star power, and I've been preaching that like depth is the way to go, but you need that depth built around stars. And when, you're like Cleveland and you lose Garland and you lose Mobley, like those are the guys who are there to support Donovan Mitchell. And without them, the team just doesn't quite function correctly. Like,
And
they've got guys.
And Donovan got hurt too with his ankle. Like, he played through it, but he had a bum ankle
He had a
too. So
bum
it's not
ankle.
like
I worry about Boston. Like, they might make the conference finals, but do you think they're going to beat this Indiana team this year?
So yeah, my next question would be: do you think Indiana is the best team in the East currently?
Yeah, because they're healthy.
Because they're healthy.
But the Knicks are good. The Knicks versus Indiana is like a really interesting matchup. Like I kind of like the Knicks talent. But like Indiana savvy. Does that make sense?
The thing with Indiana is like they're gonna run, and they've been running, and they've been running and running and running. I think that really caught Cleveland off guard because Cleveland does like to run too, but I think they're a little bit they can't keep that pace that the Pacers play with for a full game. I think they just got burnt out for a lot of these games. I think on the defensive end, Indiana found way more holes that they can poke at. Garland being one of them, Mitchell at times, even Allen. I think Tyrese Halliburton had no problems on that switch. When Allen would switch out to Tyler Hero wasn't creating nearly as many problems for Cleveland's defense as Tyrese was able to do when they had switches. They had to adjust their defense. They had to do more blitzing. They had to do a bunch of more different things against Indiana, and Indiana just makes you pay in so many different ways. I also want to like shout out Rick Carlisle in this series as well, and that closeout game especially. Like Denver. Cleveland was up by a bunch. They're up by, I think, like 19 points, 14 points, something like that. And then Indiana went on a big run. They come back. They take the lead. They go up by like 10-ish points. The second that Cleveland started to make a little run, timeouts called. And I think every timeout that Carlisle called in that game was crucial and very important. He did it very timely. Stopped every single run, got those guys set up again, and they're able to continue on the game and win out the game. I think the whole series he just did a good job with managing minutes, managing rotations, managing schemes. I think he just did a good job with how he managed Indiana for that whole time. I think as a coach, he just goes a little underrated at times. We had the most overrated player on Indiana, but I think we might have the most underrated coach in Indiana, maybe too, as well. At this point, he won a championship before. He is a defensive coach, and he's brought in defense to this Indiana team, which was severely lacking it when he got hired. So, just want to shout out Rick Carlisle for that.
I just want to touch on that overrated Halliburton thing. I mean, LeBron even was like, how is this guy overrated? Like, he's really good. He's a nice guy. He's the kind of guy you want to play with. How is he overrated? I think what happened with Halliburton was the injury, because he ascended to a point where we were like, oh, is this guy like one of the best point guards in the NBA? Is he top 10? Is he top 5 player? Like, where is he going to fit? And then he got hurt. And then his recovery took so long. Yeah. It took like a year and a half.
For him to start looking the same.
Yeah. And now he's looking like the same Halliburton that we were like all mystified by not too long ago. And so I think what happened was the overrated label got put on him while he was still recovering. Like, oh, he's not this guy you think he is. Look at his numbers. And it's like, wait, his numbers are like that because he's recovering from an injury. Right. So
yeah,
I don't know.
We don't give.
I'm a big Halliburton guy. I think at the end of the day, I'm just a big Halliburton apologist.
We don't give grace to a lot of these players when they're recovering. We should spit them. Okay, they're on the court. They should be better. They should be back to how they were before. But sometimes it takes some time, especially for a guy like Halliburton. But I think you're right. I think a lot of us, Indiana started off slow to begin with, as did Halliburton. I think we kind of wrote them off. I certainly kind of wrote them off for the majority of the season. I didn't take them serious at all. I want to give Cleveland more benefit of the doubt for the season that they had, but the same issues that popped up in this series is the same issues I was kind of anticipating with them throughout the season. But they had such a successful season that I'm like, okay, maybe they've worked past these things. But it's the same type of things. Allen gets a little too soft when the lights get at their brightest. The defense is exploitable. That wing depth isn't what it really needs to be, and they have two small guards that when you play one of them, you can get away with it, but when you play both of them together, it brings you into some danger, brings you into a danger zone. So I think Cleveland has a lot to think about in the offseason. I don't know where they go from there. They might just run it back and hope for a different outcome and just pin it on the injuries. But I think the makeup of this team does need to change. I think they need to figure out what they're going to do with Garland and Mitchell. I don't know if those two guys really coexist as a backcourt. Numbers may say otherwise, but I know the defensive numbers just look better without Garland, regardless. So I think some stuff need to happen there on the Cleveland front after watching this series.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't like the idea of Donovan Mitchell as a pure point guard. But you're right. Is Garland his best running mate, or is Garland flipped into like a really awesome 3, a better
like Boston's quietly might be blowing this thing up. Do you go after Jaylen Brown? Like, do you just do something like that?
Ooh.
Like, do you go for like a wing, a wing that can just complement? Because Donovan, there's a point last year where There's a point last year where Garland was out, not this season,
Yeah.
last season, when Garland was out for a bit, and Mitchell rose in those MVP ranks because he got to be the point guard. He got to be the engine for the team. I think he can do that if he has the right team around him. I know it's not ideal for him to be the point guard, but I think the right team around him, I think he could do that. And I wonder if Garland's your ticket to kind of get just a little bit more of a better complementing piece to him.
Yeah, that's Garland for I like it. And then like if I'm Cleveland, I'm probably looking for my Drew Holiday, right? I'm looking for a point of attack defense point guard who's, more than willing to defer. Yeah. I think if I'm Cleveland, I make moves. I think I make moves. And I think Garland's the guy, which is kind of a shame. He's got great basketball IQ. He's one of Kevin Durant's very favorite players. So, is Garland that if you've got a lineup that can like hide a bit of a weak defensive point guard, you might want to go hard after Garland, right?
Yeah. If you need a guard, I think Garland can certainly help your team. I think it's just a fit at this point, which is kind of troubling for him with this Cleveland team, at least from my view of it.
I'd love to see Garland doing pick and rolls with Bam and Ware all day, but I don't want that backcourt of
I don't want him next to Hero.
Garland.
No, you have to trade Hero at that point. Like you must trade. You have to trade.
You have to do it, and that's kind of an unfortunate thing, right? So it's kind of a question of where would a Garland? Could you put a Garland on Minnesota?
I was just thinking the same thing. Yeah, right? I think you could. I wonder. I do wonder what's going to happen with Garland and what they, because there was like light rumors last year. In the offseason that they were like kind of looking at them and then they shushed those. But I wonder if that noise gets a little louder again. But for sure, want to shout out
McDaniels plus for Garland.
I think you need McDaniels on this team with Ant. I think that's just like one of those. I know he doesn't do a ton.
If you're Cleveland, like what else are you asking for? You don't want Randall. You don't want Rudy. You don't want like Dillingham's not that impressive right now. I think you would want like a McDaniels.
You would want McDaniels. You'd want McDaniels. Yeah, if you're Cleveland, you definitely should be asking for McDaniels, and maybe this is where the trade just breaks down, where they're just like, we can't. We got Naz Reid and Dante DiVincenzo and some picks. You got some depth.
Nobody wants depth. They want to get better with their starters.
Exactly. I agree. Want to just make so Indiana moves on to those conference finals. Indiana has had one of the better seasons of this year, one of the better playoffs runs 2 years in a row. So they're back to back going to that conference finals. They did it last year. They do it again this year. Are they now a premier team of the East? I guess they have to be, right?
Yeah, they're probably the most slept on team in the East, but like NBA Cup,
they always they wake up for anything that matters. Anything that has a little bit of stakes, they are there for it.
Yeah, right. And it's like
Neesmith, all these guys, Benedict, Neesmith, Nembhard. Nembhard is one of those guys that like I can't get in. Like he is the ideal like guard that you want like next to like your guard duo. He steps up in these playoff moments. You get his shots. He's a very good defender. He kept Donovan Mitchell in check this entire series. I think he shot like 10 of 23 or 10 of 30. No, 10 of like 30 or something like that when guarded by Nembhard. I just think, Nembhard, I think the role players that these guys got, everyone buys in. Carlo has them running defense in a way that the Pacers just haven't run defense in a while. I like what's going on there. I think I would have, even in a healthy situation with Boston, if Boston was able to come out and beat the Knicks, and let's say Tatum was healthy, I was leaning towards picking Indiana in that type of series with how they've been playing.
You know me, I love an Indiana.
I know you love an Indiana. I know how much you love Boston. So I wonder where you would have went there. But yeah, I think the way that they can attack different defenses and the way that Boston was kind of lacking that interior, I think would cause a lot of trouble. But we'll move on into that series now. So Boston, New York. Boston does win tonight, so they get the series back to 3-2. Going back to New York for Game 6. What are your thoughts on that series? I guess we got to start with Tatum and his injury.
Yeah, I think this is the Tatum injury series. So I think tonight's result is more of like the team stepping up for Jason and being like, "Look, man, like nobody deserves this. You didn't deserve this. This is awful. Get better. We're going to do our best without you." But I think in the long run, even if for whatever reason they beat the Knicks, like I think they'll lose to Indiana. I do think the Knicks are now going to win this series. And like when Tatum was healthy, I thought Boston was going to win the series. And I know we give the gears to Jason Tatum a lot. And it's always a question of is he this guy that he thinks he is, that like a lot of the national media thinks he is, but he hasn't actually like performed and like pulled it off yet. And this injury is just awful. And I want only the best for Jason Tatum. I want him to come back fast. I want him to come back strong. I don't want him to have the Garland-esque, or sorry, the Halliburton-esque, year and a bit recovery. Like when he comes back, like I want him to be Jason Tatum, and I want him to be maybe even better than he was. Just because like I may not want to like hang out with Tatum, but like the NBA needs him, and I think at the end of the day, he's still just a good guy.
He's a great guy. He just has a boring game that's like not the most pleasant all the time. But he's a great guy. He's a tremendous basketball player.
That's it.
And it sucks. It really does suck. Like I can't remember.
I hate Boston, and it sucks.
Yeah, I'm not like a big Tatum guy, but when he went down, and when he went down, you kind of knew what it was, and it was. I felt so bad. Like I don't know the last time we seen a superstar of his caliber in their prime, midst of his prime, beginning of their prime, tear their Achilles. Like we saw Kobe tear his Achilles when he was old. We saw KD when he was in his 30s. We saw
in his 30s.
He saw his 30s. We saw Kobe. He was an older guy. D Rose is the closest thing that comes to mind, but D Rose is in the ACL. It wasn't the same as like an Achilles injury. So it just really like I don't know.
Kawhi's got his weird legs. Nobody quite knows what Kawhi's injury is.
Kawhi's got his quad knee whole. I don't know what Kawhi is. Kawhi is a robot. Then just needs some oil changes sometimes. I feel like. Who knows what's going on with that guy? But someone of like Tatum, season out, he's been an Iron Man. He doesn't get injured much. Just to get hurt like that, really, really, really does suck. And I really do feel for Jason Tatum and Boston fans and Tatum's family and all that. Because I honestly don't know what this means for Boston in general. Like before the series started, there was rumors and little talk that this would be the last run for this core. This would be this offseason because they have to pay too many guys. They need to start cutting and making trades to kind of think about their future again because they can't keep, paying out these guys and having this large tax bill. And if they go out in the second round, which it looks like they will, I think that makes that decision even more easier for them when one of their premier players is probably going to be out for a majority of the year next year. So it just stinks for it to kind of end in this situation and not have it happen just being beaten on the court.
Yeah, it's and I think that's what you want. You wanted them to be beat on the court, right? You want another team to come along and just be like, we're better than you. You got to do something. You won't ever make it back to the top with these guys, right? And I don't know. I hate when that's taken out of you, right? Like as Philadelphia fans, right? Like obviously, what a terrible year to have Embiid go down again, right? Like. I
And
don't
it
know.
does
It's
stink
it's it's
because it was
sports, but it sucks, man. It
yeah,
sucks.
it really does stink because the series was really fun. It was a really fun
Yeah.
series. You had all these 20-point comebacks. Even in the game that Tatum gets here, it was his best game of probably the playoffs this year. He was just firing on all cylinders. He started to take some really questionable shots though when the game started to get tight. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why? Why do you just default to doing these things? Like, he took a crazy logo three for absolutely no reason
Mm.
when New York started to get momentum. But the game was extremely fun and it was a good game, good series that I could have saw going to 7 or even or a tough 6 with the way that it was panning out. So just it really stinks. Shout out to New York. They've had a really good playoff run this year. They built this team to compete with this Boston Celtic team specifically, and they showed that it worked. For at
Yeah.
least three and a half games while that team was fully healthy, they showed that it was the right decision to do to get Mikal Bridges. No matter the 5 picks that I always kill them for, it worked. It made them. It got them to beat the team that they wanted to beat. Then 5 picks for Bridges worked. The trade for OG has looked tremendous. The cat thing, I don't know. I'm still not sold on the cat thing because when it comes to another team, I know this is a team specifically built for Boston, and they built that team knowing that um their bigs aren't going to really impact our bigs that much. You have Al Horford and Porzingis out there who aren't really interior forces like that. They're going to be standing on the 3-point line. They're going to be shooting threes.
Yeah.
They're just kind of offensive movers on the offensive end. They're not there to really impact the game in that type of way. On the defensive end, they do impact the game, but on the offensive end, they're not going to really kill Cat in the way that you might need to kill Cat. It sounds crazy saying that. I'm all for animals, people. I swear.
Cats with a K.
Cats with the K. So yeah, I still have a lot of worries about the Knicks in another series, but I think for this series, it worked out exactly how they planned it out to be. Moving on into that next series, I think we can kind of forecast Tyrese versus Brunson. Who is the better player? Who is the best player of that series?
I think this would be easier to answer if we had Tyrese at full strength for at least half the year. Brunson's really good. He's really good.
He's really good, man.
I think,
and he got guts.
golly,
Both of these guys got
yeah.
guts.
Both of them got guts.
They both got game winners.
Yeah.
In these playoffs.
The way Halliburton could shake a Giannis, though, I don't know if Brunson could do that.
But Brunson shook Oscar Thompson to win a series.
I love the Thompson twins, but they ain't Giannis.
It's not Giannis.
All right. Golly, ooh, that's a tough one. I think if I'm building a team, I take Halliburton. Is he better? I don't know. Is he just the guy that I want to build the team around? Yes.
Yeah, I asked you the question because I have no intentions of giving an answer for this question because I don't know. They're both phenomenal players. Like they both impact the game in different ways. Like yes, Tyrese. If I'm building a team, I'd probably go Tyrese. If I want to win one game, I might want Jalen Brunson. But Tyrese has that gear to him too. We saw in that comeback against Cleveland in their closeout game. Tyrese had like 19 points in the quarter, something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So he has that mode that he can get to too when he's really firing. And he's bigger. He's bigger than you think of when you really see him. Like he plays small, but when he gets to the paint, you see how big he is.
He's like 6'5".
Yeah, and he's lanky. Yeah, so I don't know who I'll go with either. That's why I asked you the question. I think that's good on the East though. So I think East pretty much set. I think we know where we're going with the East. Now over at West, where things are a little bit more unsettled, we're recording this as Minnesota and Golden State are playing Game 5. Minnesota's in the lead right now. Golden State has made a little bit of a comeback, but Minnesota's controlled most of this game. They've been up by 20 at one point. Golden State just fighting back right now to keep themselves in there. But let's start with OKC Denver to give us some time to see what happens in the Golden State game. Well, how have you felt about this OKC versus Denver series, which has been, it's going to 6.
God, I hope it goes 7. And that's not just because I want Denver to win. I just want more of this series. it's been really fun. It's been a little bit shocking. Like I knew Denver was like a good team, but I kind of thought like OKC was just gonna walk the West. Do I feel like Minnesota or Golden State could take it to OKC? I really don't. So like this is the big challenge. This Denver is the big challenge, and it's really just because of Nikola Jokic. And I really want to see it go 7. And that's kind of where I'm at with that. Like this one's just like a fun one that as a fan, this is all I want.
Yeah, no, this has been a tremendous one. I think it was game 4 where I don't think either team got above 90, but I loved it. Like I'm a sicko like that. Like it was, no one was scoring. No one could score that basketball. But what I really liked about that game was, I think for 2 games at that point, 2 or 3 games, I think it was 3 games where Jokic really did struggle on offense.
Yeah.
And Shea as well was struggling for about 2 or 3 games there. Last game, I think Shea picked it up. He looked more like himself. But the defensive attention, and I might have mentioned it in one of our early episodes, but the defensive attention that Denver has been paying to Shea and the defensive attention that OKC has been paying on Jokic has just been so incredible. Like you see Shea, like he's trying to break down his main guy. They usually have the Christian Braun on him, sometimes Westbrook, but mostly Christian Braun's been on him. You could see him trying to attack him. First of all, he's a stout defender, so he's strong. He's able to kind of stay with Shea in certain pockets. But you can see Shea focusing on like the back line of the defense and seeing where everyone is. And you look at everybody, their eyes are just glued onto Shea. He starts getting to the basket, the help is coming, and it's coming in angles that are hard for him to make those easy kick out passes. It's getting him into some trouble at some points in the series. And I really just respect how they went about like making other guys beat them. Same thing for OKC with Denver. Like they're bringing that double over, and usually that's like a death sentence with Jokic because he can just pick it apart. But one, they have Westbrook on the court, so you have Shea guarding him, and you're having Shea doing a lot of the because Shea's great in the passing lanes. He's able to deflect passes. He's able to read things very well. He gets a block a game for that reason. He gets 2 steals a game for that reason. So they have Shea kind of guarding Westbrook and not really guarding him, and they're having Dort, Caruso, Casey Wallace, whoever it may be, Jalen Williams on the wing, just flying around everywhere, trying to make any recovery to wherever Jokic kicks out the ball to. And you have Shea that's there trying to give a little bit of trying to make life a little bit more difficult for Jokic. And just seeing how they're implementing these things. And even with Denver going zone sometimes, even to kind of throw off Shea, like they're doing a lot of like just sneaky little things to kind of play with like the best players of each 2 MVP candidates. You gotta try to slow them down. And I've really liked how like each team has went at it. I mean, last game, both of those guys kind of played like their normal self. Shea had 30 points, 6 and 7, something like that. And Jokic had like 40 and 20 and 15 or some 5 or something ridiculous like that. Just a Jokic game. But they end up losing. But that's like that's what you kind of got to do against these 2 teams. So I've thoroughly enjoyed this series. I think to the question if whoever wins this series wins the West. I think if Denver wins this series, I think Minnesota can still beat them. I think if OKC wins this series, I think OKC goes to the finals. That's how I feel right now. I don't know how strongly I feel about that, but that's how I feel right now. I feel like Minnesota beat them last year. They have the confidence of it. I think they're a bit of a better team this year than they were last year. I think for all the great things that Cat provided for them on the offensive end, you lose out on the defensive end. He did play well defensively against Jokic, but that was the only position that he could really play was on Jokic because of his other defensive limitations. I think Randall, you get a little bit more versatile. Rudy's a little bit more settled in his position as a center with this being the lineup. I think this is a better playoff team than it was last year. I think last year was a better season team, but I think this year is a better playoff team. So they would not shock me if they're able to make it out of the West if they were to get Denver next round. If they were to get OKC, I feel like Shea just feels a little bit more free than he felt in this series. And that just makes life all that much harder for Minnesota to get by.
I think I'm right there with you. I'm kind of thinking like, who do I feel? at this point, who do I feel is coming out of the East? Who do I feel is coming out of the West? And who's winning it all? I think coming out of the East, I'm feeling good about the Pacers. Even if they go up against the Knicks, I feel like the Pacers can pull this off. I think if OKC wins, they come out of the West. No problem. I think if Denver wins, they also come out of the West. Just a little bit more of a problem. Do I think the Pacers beat either of those teams? I want to say yes.
At this point, we have to respect them.
Yeah, like that's where I'm at. Like I'm like, should we put some respect on the Pacers' name? They look good. They're playing good. People are healthy. I think right now, and I've messed up these playoffs hard. Every prediction I make seems to be wrong. So I'm terribly sorry, Indiana fans. But right now, feel good about you guys winning it all.
Wow. That is a take. That is for sure a take. One thing, I think they can get to the finals, Indiana.
Yeah.
I think one thing that might go a little unnoticed is that how deep New York will have had to go in both these series. Now they're going to at least 6 games in both. They won in 6, I think, against Detroit, and they won again.
Yeah.
And they're going to go to game 6. We don't know if they're going to win or not, but they are going to at least 6 again. They don't play many guys. They play about 6, 7 guys. I think that's going to catch up to them at some point, probably in the conference finals against a team that loves to run and loves to keep the ball moving and loves to keep you on your feet. I think that's a tough matchup for the Knicks. So I think I'm with you there. I think Pacers should be the favorite to go to the finals. Now, do I trust their defense enough to contain an OKC? I don't think I'm there yet. For as much praise as I gave Carlisle earlier, I'm not there yet. But Nembhard could shock me because he's done some crazy things these playoffs. And if there's any guy that I want guarding Shea, I think Nembhard is one of those guys. So I think he can make life difficult. And I think once you make his life difficult, you have Nesmith there on Jalen. You have Siakam there battling Chet. I think you have some interesting things that can play around there. And I think it could be a more competitive series than it might look out to be on the just from judging it on paper. So I don't hate the take. I don't hate the Pacers take. I'm trying to think of anything else. Yeah. Oh, so OKC and not OKC, Golden State and Minnesota. It looks as if there's 6 minutes left and Warriors are down by about 12 points. I want to call this series over for the Warriors. Putting a cap on their season where they've tried again to extend the life of this dynasty. I think it comes to an end in this series. What are your thoughts on how this played out? I know it sucks with injuries again. So Curry, I guess, is where that one.
Yeah, I mean injuries suck. I think OKC should feel good about themselves. Because they extended Jimmy. He's on the same timeline as Draymond and Curry now. I think they've got 2 more years to try and do this again. I think they're aware that Jonathan Kuminga is not going to be a part of their future. I think they're okay with the idea of trading like a Moody and a Pods if they have to. Don't be surprised if Golden State makes a big swing this offseason. Or they trade a lot of this youth to really shore up great role players and defensive depth. I think I think Golden State still's got time, but I think injuries are going to catch up with them this year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be another tough year for them. Looking at these playoff series, we didn't get our Jimmy Butler moment. I don't think. I think it was coming in game 3 where he had about 30 points against the Warriors against Minnesota. I think that was supposed to be the game that they won, and they ended up losing that game. I think that took the wind out of him.
Yeah.
I don't know. They made this trade for Jimmy. I think it was the right trade to make. I don't think they gave up too much. I think they gave up the appropriate amount. I don't know if Jimmy's going to be the guy to get them that finals chance. I think they missed the boat of Jimmy, but just by like a year or two. I think he just might be a little bit on his decline now. I think this playoffs have proved it. I think they've been waiting in this closeout game, which Jimmy usually wakes up for these games. And I'm just taking a look at the still 12 points, 5 minutes, 12 points. But he's 3 of 9 from the field. He only has 14 points, 14, 5 and 4, 3 steals. 3 steals is nice. He shot 9 free throws, which is good, but it's just not what you want from Jimmy in a closeout game at this stage. You signed him up in case Steph got hurt, that he would be able to carry you for at least a game or two. And he, at this stage of his career, I don't know if he's able to do that with this roster. Now, yes, if they do some shakeups in the offseason and they switch around the roster a little bit to make it complement those 3 guys a little bit better, I think they can be right back here with a better chance of making it to a conference finals. But I think it's going to be tough for them at this stage of their career, especially with Curry just getting his first hamstring injury. Usually those are the signs of a little bit of a, those things don't go away. They kind of just compound. Hamstrings and it turns into the groin. Next thing you know, groin's hurt. So I get a little bit of wary with that stuff with a aging guard. As good as Curry has been, he might still be good, but just might not be healthy all the time anymore. He might be entering that phase of his career. So it makes me a little bit nervous for the trade that they made. But do you think they got the guts? You say they might make a splash. Do you think they got the guts to trade Jimmy in a Giannis trade? Or you think that's just too cold?
I don't think it's too cold. The NBA nowadays, nothing's off the table. Nothing, right? Like
Luka got traded, then anyone can get traded.
Luka got traded. It's one of those things where, like, I even floated the Raptors trading Brandon Ingram for Giannis before he even played a game for them. I think it's the cost of doing business these days. I don't know if Golden State is the Giannis destination.
I just know that they love him. Yeah, I don't know if he's a destination. I just know that Golden State loves him. Who doesn't?
Yeah. My thing is, like, I was thinking about Jimmy versus Andrew Wiggins, and would their numbers be much different? Probably not. Wiggins would probably put up the exact same line. But there's this confidence that comes with Jimmy.
Yeah, and maybe the impact is just different.
Yeah, maybe you've overpaid him by a couple $1 million when it comes to this extension, because he's just not in a position to put up like the 30, 40 pointers anymore as consistently. But I think you still want Jimmy. Like, I think he's been a boon for Golden State. It's just how you work it all around him. Like, I think Draymond got better after Jimmy showed up.
He did, yeah.
I think Steph was freed up after Jimmy showed up.
Yeah,
there's so much that went on with that trade beyond the numbers that Jimmy did. That said, like, yes, I think he makes sense in Golden State. I think he's the player you want. I don't want to pay him $60 million a year or whatever he's going to make in the next 2 years.
60, yeah, 60.
Ooh, that's gross. Like, yeah. He's a $30 million at best player now. Like, if you're going to put up those numbers, like,
which is why Pat wanted to wait. He wanted to wait to see this out, because he's like, I know you're a great player. I know you impact winning. I know you're great for team building. I just can't pay you.
I can't pay you $60 million
to have 14 in a closeout game. Yeah. It's just like, But yeah, he definitely, when he got there, they became one of the best teams in the league. They barely lost any games. So I can't really knock them for making that trade whatsoever. You didn't give up too much. You're losing a 20th pick this year. That's not too wow. That's fine. Yeah. Wiggins was on his way out anyway, probably with that team. Kyle Anderson, yeah, like you're fine. you did the right thing if you're Golden State. Minnesota, on the other hand, it's crazy though. We have these two teams, Minnesota and New York, both made this trade last season. Both were criticized at points. Both were praised at points. Both of them. Minnesota's going to the conference finals. New York, we don't know yet, but presumably we'll be going to the conference finals. I think that trade worked out supremely well for Minnesota. Looking at the closeout game here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys in double figures. Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle being your leading scorer in this game. He had a triple-double earlier in this series. This has been one of his best playoff series, I think. The playoff runs in general for Julius Randle. Yeah, and I think it's just been a great run for Minnesota. Their defense has been tremendous, as you expect it to be from a Chris Finch team now. And their offense has looked really good. They know when to get the point. They know where they're getting their points. Anthony Edwards didn't even really have to score much today, but he has almost a triple-double. He has 19 points, 10 assists, 6 rebounds, 7 turnovers. You don't love, but he's still trying to figure out
double.
yeah. But he's still figuring out how to impact the game beyond just being a dynamite scorer. And he's done. When we started talking about him in the beginning of the season, we wanted to track how he was going to handle being the focal point on offense. I think he's handled it. There's bumps. There's a lot of bumps throughout the season. I wasn't sure if he was going to get there, but I think now 10 assists in a closeout game, presumably a game that they're going to win. I think it looks good. I think you could comfortably have him as your number one guy on offense. He settles Julius. He lets Julius be Julius without taking too much away from him. And that's what you really want from your star players. Julius is a ridiculous reverse layup as I say that. He's smiling. He's having the time of his life. I don't think I've ever seen him smile like that. In New York, he certainly wasn't smiling like that, battling against RJ all the time, fighting against Brunson all the time for the ball. I think Anthony Edwards has been able to do something tremendous with this Minnesota team, and at such a young age, sky is the limit for that one.
So are you excited for? So this was a trade of two imperfect players. Are you excited for the finals of Timberwolves versus Knicks?
Oh, that would just be who won the trade. We could finally figure it out. I would. I'm also would be really excited to see an OKC versus Minnesota conference finals. I'll be. I think as just ready for that right now. And apparently Julius Randle too, as he scores it again. Yeah, this one's over. This game is done.
Wow. All right. Good for you, Minnesota. We'll see you for a couple more games, and we'll see what happens.
And you get a little extra rest. And I think that will do it for this episode of the NBA Hangout too. We've gone on for quite some time. It's probably been our longest one. Yeah, lots of fun. Anything else before we head out?
Golly, I think we got it all.
If we didn't, we'll be back next week. So
yeah, we'll be back next week. As a Raptors fan, we believe in Masai. Even though we lost 2 picks in the draft, I still think we're going to come out with a good player. It's going to fit the system. I just don't think we're going to be revolutionized at number 9. Although we got DeMar DeRozan at 9, we got Jakob Poeltl at 9. We got a guy named Tracy McGrady once upon a time at 9.
Ooh, Tracy.
So it's kind of a lucky pick for the Raptors.
It's not a bad one for the for the Raptors at all. Yeah, thank y'all for hanging out with us. You can follow us at the NBA Hangout on Twitter. You can follow me at BJY93_, and you can follow Dave here every week. Follow us on YouTube, subscribe, like, all that stuff. We'll be there.
Are we on Blue Sky yet?
Is that no? We're not there yet.
I don't know. I
know it's still a thing. I know. Actually, a lot of NBA Twitter still over there. So I shouldn't knock it too much, but we're not there yet. Okay, we're not there. Thank you for hanging out with us. Peace.